This world is older than any of you know. Contrary to popular mythology, it did not begin as a paradise. For untold eons, demons walked the earth. They made it their home, their hell. But in time they lost their purchase on this reality. The way was made for mortal animals, for man. All that remains of the old ones are vestiges, certain magics, certain creatures. The books tell the last demon to leave this reality fed off a human, mixed their blood. He was a human form possessed, infected by the demon's soul. He bit another, and so they walk the earth, feeding, killing some, mixing their blood with others to make more of their kind, waiting for the animals to die out and the old ones to return. Giles the Watcher, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, don't you get exasperated, furious even about why God is so confusing? Why are there so many different religions and spiritual systems, all saying completely different things? How are we supposed to discover the truth of God? Doesn't it drive you crazy? Doesn't it make you desperate to get to the bottom of it all? There must be a way to find the right answer. It surely wasn't supposed to be this difficult. Something's getting in the way, blocking our path to God. It's as if there's some kind of force field standing between God and us. Maybe we could call it the devil field, or the field of fake news and false information. It takes something drastic to break on through to the other side. But how on earth did I end up using vampires to talk to God? You definitely can't get any more drastic and desperate than that. My idea for getting the dope on God was in fact inspired by an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Hence why this is the vampire route to God. How I talk to the divine. Let me call it God confusion. Is when you hear loads of people saying loads of different things about God, and you have no idea who's telling it like it is. Whom should you believe? Should you believe the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Taoists, some charismatic spiritual guru? In whom should we place our trust? What happens if you believe in the wrong God, or believe in God in the wrong way, or do the wrong thing without knowing it's the wrong thing? As we all know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Don't you just get really sick of it all? Doesn't it do your head in? This can't be how it all works. I was venting to an acquaintance about all of this, and he said he had the perfect answer for my problem. He said I had to read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. So I went ahead and read it. At the end, I had only one thought. The author definitely wasn't having conversations with God. Oh dear. It was exactly like everything else, just adding more confusion about the nature of God. I wasn't sure if I found this funny or depressing. Walsh's book was just another unconvincing take on God. I knew that Walsh was really talking to himself, and then pretending it was God, whether or not he was consciously aware of that fact. That's what plenty of people do. They don't think of what God is, but what they want God to be, which is an entirely different thing. But I did take one valuable lesson from Walsh. The fact that he believed he was having an authentic encounter with God showed that our unconscious mind has incredible powers, and if you communicate with it well enough, it might actually seem like you're conversing with God, and it might give you far better insights than your own consciousness does. For Walsh, writing his books changed his life. His personal encounter with God, or rather with the power of his unconscious, was transformational for him. And indeed for many others, all those that found his book persuasive. As for me, I wasn't convinced at all by Walsh's book. As far as I was concerned, this was a man organizing his own unconscious thoughts about God to make a system that made sense to him. Good for him, but not for me. His ideas about God were nothing like mine. Walsh's Wikipedia entry says, Walsh was brought up as a Catholic by a family who encouraged his quest for spiritual truth. He informally studied comparative theology for many years. He says his books are not channeled, but rather that they are inspired by God, and that they can help a person relate to God from a modern perspective. Walsh's vision is an expansion and unification of all present theologies to render them more relevant to our present day and time. He created humanity's team as a spiritual movement, whose purpose is to communicate and implement his new spirituality beliefs, particularly that we are all one with God and one with life, in a shared global state of being. Walsh's conversations with God are just his conversations with himself, where he reaches exactly the conclusions he wants to arrive at, whereby all the world's religions can be unified in one slushy new spiritual system. I fundamentally deny that different religions can be unified. I don't see any connection at all between, for example, Islam and Hinduism, between religions based on resurrection and those based on reincarnation, on those that have a hell and those that don't, on those that are about theism and those that concern pantheism and so on. Personally, I'm always unconvinced when anyone says that everyone in the world basically believes in the same God. I don't see that at all. And human history shows that people are much more likely to go to war over their different beliefs in God, then agree that they all have much the same thing in mind when they refer to God. Walsh and people like him may be well-meaning when they try to find a way of unifying competing religions in order to make the world more peaceful and harmonious, but to me, they're just projecting their own desires rather than seriously engaging with the true nature of God. I don't want people's beliefs and opinions about God. I want true knowledge of the true God. We all want the real thing, though, don't we? Deep down, we all crave the absolute truth, not just some nice liberal idea that we think might make the world a better place. I don't want to talk to my own unconscious or my own subjective beliefs, then call it God, because it makes me feel good. I want to actually talk to God. I want the answers to all the big questions. I want to know what it's really all about. What am I supposed to do with my life? How am I supposed to live? What's the right thing to do? What's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of each and every one of us? What are the big explanations for everything? Is there a way to get all the way through to God, the true God? The secret. Is there a big secret? Are we all in direct touch with God if we did but know it? Is the big issue the one of finding the correct communication channel? We have lots of communication channels, but most of them lead straight to our own unconscious rather than to God. We can then get confused and believe in what our own unconscious tells us. As our dreams show, communications from our unconscious can often seem numinous. We can easily mix up what our unconscious mind is saying with what we imagine God is saying. Many prophets and gurus have fallen into this exact trap. Ludwig Feuerbach said, "God did not, as the Bible says, make man in his image. On the contrary, man, as I have shown in the essence of Christianity, made God in his image." Feuerbach isn't quite right. In fact, humanity made God in the image of humanity's unconscious. Humans didn't consciously make God. Humanity encountered all manner of weird and wonderful things in their unconscious, and turned these into religions and spiritual systems. Very little of these had any connection to the true God. They were all about humans rather than God. There is in fact a direct path to God for all of us, but we have to get all the way from our consciousness to God via our unconscious, and it's easy to stop short and then believe whatever mind-blowing answer we find in our unconscious before we actually encounter God. Beneath our consciousness, we have a personal unconscious, containing a huge amount of information we've been exposed to over the years, including all of our memories of everything that has happened to us and everything we have learned over the years. Our unconscious mind, just like our conscious mind, is always thinking. Of course, we're not aware of what it's thinking, because we're not conscious of it. Although we get some notion of it when we dream, when we interrogate our unconscious regarding God, it serves back to us its own thoughts regarding God, which can often seem very much more powerful than our normal, conscious thoughts regarding God. Why is this? Why does our unconscious often produce very different ideas from our consciousness? It's because our conscious mind comes with an inbuilt sensor. If you were raised as a Christian and have remained a believer, you automatically screen out anything to do with non-Christianity. You reject everything that contradicts Christianity. Your sensor filters out non-Christian content that could undermine your Christian faith. Sigmund Freud got things round the wrong way when he claimed that the unconscious mind, rather than the conscious mind, has a sensor. He wrote, "We hold that our psychical apparatus contains two procedures for the construction of thoughts. The second one has the advantage that its products find an open path to consciousness, whilst the activity of the first procedure is unknown to itself and can only arrive at consciousness through the second one. At the borderland of these two procedures, where the first passes over into the second, a censorship is established which only passes what pleases it, keeping back everything else. That which is rejected by the censorship is, according to our definition, in a state of repression. According to this view, the unconscious mind serves up to consciousness only censored material." Freud wrote, "Dream disfigurement then turns out in reality to be an act of the censor. We shall take into consideration everything which the analysis of disagreeable dreams has brought to light if we reword our formula as follows. The dream is the disguised fulfillment of a suppressed, repressed wish." For Freud, a force, the censor, was in operation to repress unacceptable thoughts, or to disguise them to make them acceptable. Actually, the unconscious has no clue about censorship. It's consciousness that does all the censoring. Conscious people are 100% aware of what is taboo. Why do we have a persona, a social mask, if not to censor our real thoughts to make them acceptable to the world at large? Your consciousness is highly biased. Your unconscious isn't biased at all. It takes in all the material you encounter and tries to make sense of it all, without showing any prejudice at all. If you then access the unconscious mind in a powerful way, as Neil Donald Walsh did, you get back content that can seem profound and persuasive, even divinely sourced. Walsh said that God communicates 4 key concepts for the human race. 1. We are all one. 2. There's enough. 3. There's nothing we have to do. 4. Ours is not a better way. Ours is merely another way. Do you see how this avoids all bias in favor of any particular religion? Hence, could literally appeal to all religious people. This is the exact reason for Walsh's success. He alienated no one and appealed to everyone. The trouble is that what he says is so bland and general as to be close to meaningless. It doesn't answer anything. How are we all one? There's enough what? What do we do about those that take too much for themselves, such as the very rich? Walsh himself became very rich thanks to his books. If there's nothing we have to do, what's the point of existence? What's the meaning of life? If there's no better way, then Satanism is as valid as Christianity, and systems that are completely contradictory, hence can't possibly belong together in a single coherent system, are all equally good, even though they can't be. If you want to try to create a universal religion that offends no one, it will say more or less nothing, and will just be a series of platitudes, exactly like Walsh's system. Nothing gets explained. We are simply told reassuring, innocuous generalities, incapable of offending anyone, but allowing everyone to believe whatever they want to believe. It's what they want, not what God wants, that drives the agenda. Walsh's system is just pure New Ageism, banal spirituality and generalized claims about love and light and everyone being nice to everyone else. The real God would deliver real answers, real explanations. The question, as always, is how we reach the real God. Our personal unconscious shields us from God. How to get past this? Deeper than the personal unconscious is the collective unconscious, the unconscious we all share. We can all communicate with each other via the collective unconscious, which can be thought of as a collective mind. And deeper than the collective unconscious is God, the source of all. Our conscious minds have to get past the personal unconscious, and then also past the collective unconscious, if they want to encounter God directly. If the personal unconscious can lead us astray, that's even more true of the collective unconscious, which is even more powerful. The world's great religions have features supplied by the collective unconscious. That's why they succeeded. That's why they proved to have such broad appeal and captivated so many people. Many other religions have fallen by the wayside since they didn't wield the same psychological power, and so didn't seem as convincing. The problem we all have is that our personal conscious struggles to communicate with our personal unconscious, which struggles to communicate with the collective unconscious, which struggles to communicate with God. It's all one big struggle, full of confusing messages, always in need of interpretation, and always in high danger of being drastically misinterpreted. We struggle to communicate with ourselves and with others, and especially with God. Are there too many layers between us? Will God's message never reach us loud and clear? Will it always be garbled and scrambled? The signal is never clear. The message we receive is always ambiguous, and ambiguity is useless when you want to know how to live your life. If someone gives you unclear instructions, how is that helping? You don't know what to do. Clarity is essential.